we are talking about the science of mind principles, and in particular, this is the fourth in a series of talks, actually the third, but I'm going to combine two talks in one. And basically, what I want to do is talk about the facts behind what the universe does and how to use the power of the universe. What it does and how to use the power. I'm going to combine those two into one. And let me begin by talking about the beginnings of science of mind. In the beginning, Ernest Holmes would come on the radio and say, there's a power for good in the universe, and you can use it. And so you can use it is the theme of today. Before we get to you can use it, Reverend Carolyn covered what is the power, very briefly, and I'll go into more as we go along. The power is learning that relationship between the conscious and the subconscious mind. It's being able to make the connection there to get into the power. What it does is it works through the law, and there's several laws, and as long as we follow the law, we got the power. So what I'm doing is combining the third and fourth sections. The third section would be what the universe does and how do we use it. So I'm combining those two in today's talk. And it's interesting, I've mentioned this before, but when we talk about science of mind, if you go to a Good Webster's Dictionary, you'll find that the science of mind is a definition of psychology. So the two of them are linked together. Now, just to give you a sense of where the talk is going, let me mention what is advanced science of mind. What is the most advanced thing we do in this teaching? What is the most complete thing we do in this teaching? And that is the same statement that Ernest Holmes made with a little twist. He said, there's a power for good in the universe, and that power can use you. It's not that you can use it, it can use you. That's the most advanced teaching. And what does that mean, that power can use you? Well, what it means is learning to listen to the power through meditation, through contemplation, through basically the silence, listening to the silence. Then the power can use you. How? Because you know what the power is telling you to do, and you do it. That's where the power is using you. It's basically helping itself and helping you to manifest its life. Learning to reveal truth through your intuitive and spiritual nature, one of our principles, is another way of using the power. Because if we don't listen to and know it through spiritual laws and our own intuition, we're not going to be able to do what it needs us to do to complete the relationship between the conscious and subconscious. And then finally, it's kind of learning some basic spiritual principles, and the strongest one is, I think, learning that manifestation comes through moving from thoughts to things, learning how that process works. And very basically, that process works in three stages, which we can think of as the Trinity. Stage one is that our intuitions become thoughts and words. That's stage one. Once we get thoughts and words together that are clear, the second stage is that our feelings, our thoughts and words become feelings, and they become energy. And in the third phase, once we have the feeling and the energy behind our thoughts and words, guess what happens? Manifestation and things come into focus. But there's sort of a three-step process, and that's a universal Trinity. Now let me get into the facts. I said this is about facts of what the universe does and how to use its power. Fact number one, and it's actually 5 facts I'm going to cover to complete the talk. Fact number one is that conscious thinking gives conscious direction. Conscious thinking gives conscious direction. You can imagine what unconscious thinking does. In fact, subconscious or unconscious thinking produces results, but they produce subjective, unconscious results that may not lead to much. Why? Because they're not really focused. For example, if you were using your intuition to understand where your thought was leading, and let's say you tried to get a sense of what it was, you put a little vision in, you close your eyes, and you just see a big blank screen, you don't get anything. Well, the universe is probably saying, there's nothing to happen right now, so don't push it. Or if you close your eyes and you happen to see an image of quicksand, you could say, oh, that's just an image, I'm going to do what I want to do. Or you could say, wait a minute, I'm going to be stuck. I do this, so I'm not going to go forward. So conscious thinking is just having a conscious direction, basically. Now, night dreams and daydreams and visioning are forms of unconscious thinking. And they're okay as long as we can interpret them. So when we have a dream, when we have a vision, whether it's a daydream or a night dream, as long as we bring it into consciousness, then it becomes conscious thinking. If it stays in the subconscious, it's going to be a little swirly and we're not going to quite know what to do with it. There were some rabbis a long time ago discussing what does a dream mean, because much of the Bible is based on dreams and vision. That's how it came into being. And these rabbis in a book called the Talmud were saying, what do dreams mean? And they came to the conclusion that a dream that's not interpreted is like a letter from God that's not read. And that applies to visions or any kind of things we get from the subjective mind. If we don't interpret them, it's like we didn't really get the mail. We didn't really understand what was being said. Now, there are purposes of subconscious thinking or subjective thinking, and we see it a lot in this thing called abstract art. I was never a fan of abstract art, but it's a big part of art. And then we have fine art, where it's not really totally abstract, but it's just not, people aren't really trying to make it that realistic. And then we move on a little further, then you have architecture. That's pretty realistic. And if you move on even further, you have what's called rendering, where someone looks at something and they make it exactly what they see. I used to took a course in rendering. It was amazing, some of the techniques you can use to render something. It's like painting by little dots, but you have to make the dots yourself before you can do the drawing. And then finally, there's what's called structural engineering. And that's where, yeah, you got the form, you got the structure, you got the pretty building, but let's do the mathematics to make sure it can stand and works. And so that's just going from something that's very subjective to something that's very objective. Now, we can fact number 2, we can only know as much as we can prove. We can only know as much as we can prove. And or demonstrate something. Even if we can't physically prove it, as long as we can demonstrate this is how it works, show, so to speak, then it's okay. So things that we can't prove may be true. Most likely they may not be true. For example, if you have a feeling about something, but you can't prove it, you can't back it up by getting some more data, it may or may not be true. If you have an opinion about something, but you haven't done the research or dug out or tested it, it may or may not be true. Wayne Dyer has a statement where he says, if you don't believe everything you think. It may not be true. Just because you think it doesn't mean it's true. So try to prove what you're thinking before you put both feet into it. Making or building things based on what you see may work. But sometimes if you see something and say, I'm going to make that, I'm going to do that because I saw it. Well, maybe you can, but a lot of times there's something beneath what you see. So we can't necessarily just make a building or make a thing because of what we saw. We almost have to go through the details to make it work out. And the third part of we can only know as much as we can prove is something that Oprah once said when they asked her what about getting into politics. She said, well, I have to stay in my lane. Stay in your lane and don't blindly follow or adopt another person's style just because I like that style, so I'm going to do that style. For example, if I were to say, I like the way Joel Osteen speaks, so I'm going to speak like Joel Osteen. Well, I could try that, but if that's not my style, it's not going to work. So, and I know Reverend Margaret at First Church some years ago said once, I'm not a preacher, I'm a teacher. And that's the difference between the two, and that was how she put it. Now, there's 3 great teachers. They all have different styles. They're all fantastic. And I'll just mention them. One is the Pope. Whenever the Pope, this is Pope Francis, gives a talk, he reads it word by word, line by line. But the stuff, once you hear it, is very powerful. That's a powerful message. He came before Congress and did that. And then there's Joel Osteen. He walks about on stage, he's very smooth, got a huge audience. He has a different style. And you have the Dalai Lama, whenever he gives a talk, he mostly has a Q&A session. So that's his way. And all those are great teachers, but they got different styles. Some people say, I don't want to be like the Dalai Lama. I don't want to be like Joel Osteen. I hate being like the Pope. Well, find your lane, whatever it is, and go with it. there's a lot to be said about stretching the boundaries, and that's an interesting paradox. Do you stretch the boundaries and do something you're not used to, or do you find out what's really useful and what's really yours and stay in your lane? Well, it's kind of a balancing act to do. Now, fact 3 is that most of the time, physical manifestation is not instant. Because a lot of times we want instant results when we pray or ask for something. But most of the time, it's not instant. When you want an answer to your dilemma, sometimes you can actually get an instant answer through intuition if we just relax. If we want something and we don't know whether we're going to get it or not, sometimes you can go into a little visioning, a little intuition, and ask, "Dear universe, what do you think of this idea? What's going to happen with this?" And if you get something that's just like quicksand or it looks terrible, probably that's not the idea you want to just keep pounding away at, as opposed to sometimes we want something, we just keep pushing for that one thing, and maybe it's not something that we should push for. We should step back and ask, is this doable? And then do what you need to do to make it happen. Now, when it comes to something that looks like it's instant, it's lottery winning. And when you see someone win a lottery, you might think, oh, that person's lucky. They just played the lottery and won it. It's probably not that simple. I think most people that win in the lottery, they've been thinking about it quite a while. They've been playing it quite a while. They've been focused on it, and eventually they win. But it's rare that someone's never been thinking about it, never done anything, put down a couple bucks, and they're going to win millions. It just doesn't work that way. In most cases, they put in their thoughts about it, and eventually the universe responds. But it's not like just a quick fix. I'm on my last dollar. I'm going to see if I can win the lottery. You shouldn't do that. Okay, now, answers to prayers can be objective, where you actually see something physically happening, but answers to prayers may be subjective, where you just have a different thought about something or a different feeling. And that's the answer to the prayer, as opposed to looking for physical things to show up. So my mom used to have a little square tag that she would put on her shirt, and I kept it. I still have it, and it just says, "Pray until something happens." She's really a Baptist, big time, but it applies to us too. Pray until something happens. Now, the something may be physical, it may not be physical, and so that's where we have to be on the alert to look at what is the universe telling us is an answer to our prayer. Sometimes an answer to your prayer is that's not doable, and it takes a long time to get it, but that thing is not doable. Now, fact number 4, all life moves in circles. All life has a circular flow to it. And this circle is divided into 3 sections. Every circle has a beginning. That could be a day, could be a week, could be a year, a month, sometimes very, very long. In fact, there's some life cycles that are older than the birth of Christ. There's some trees living on the planet now that were around before Jesus was born. They're still living. And some creatures come on to life, and they're only here for hours or a day. And many thoughts, sometimes they stick around for a while, but even thoughts, people, things, all forms of life go into circular motion, where there's a beginning, and ultimately there's an end when it goes through the stages. Now, there's an interesting thing from you've all probably heard, and I'm going to recite the first 3 verses of Ecclesiastes on this point. This is what it says. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under the heavens, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to harvest, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to bind up, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. And it goes on and on and on through the whole book of Ecclesiastes. But it's a very interesting statement about timing and this flow, that everything has a time. It's not just random. As Einstein once says, God doesn't play dice with the universe. Just throw stuff up and sees what happens. Everything has a purpose to it. Now, the Trinity Circle moves from the activity of conscious thought, which is stage 1, into the receptive creative mind, or the law, which is stage 2, and then into the integration stage, where there's a birth of some kind called completion, and then the cycle starts all over again. Everything in life does the same thing. Even if it's a thought or something we want to do as a project, ultimately it goes through those stages. And if we slow it down, we can sort of see them happening. Fact number 5. As long as your thoughts and your plans are aligned with the law, as long as they're aligned with the law, the thing that you want will be manifested, will be accomplished. As long as the thing that you're wanting or focusing on is aligned with the law. If it's not aligned with the law, it's not going to really manifest. But as long as it's aligned with the law, it will be accomplished. Ernest Holmes has an interesting statement here where he says, if you believe something won't work, or you believe it can't work, it's going to appear not to work. Doesn't mean it's going to appear not to work. If you believe it won't, he said it's going to appear not to work. He said it'll work according to the law, but it will appear to you that it's not working. And what that means is that the law is just doing what the law does. And to you it looks like it's not working, but the law is actually working. Now, if you believe something will work regardless of appearances, even that will work. If you think something will really work, even though people say that's stupid, that's not going to work, but you believe it will, and you keep working at it, it will work. Now, I want to talk about the story of this, in fact, the story of some great men who basically created things from an improbable background. The first one was our founder, Ernest Holmes. You think this guy had a 6th grade education, and all of us with PhDs and college degrees and all this whole philosophy, they're following this guy? Well, this guy was amazing. He created us an incredible philosophy. But that's an example of someone who did something that he believed in. It seemed improbable, but he made it happen, kind of thing. Now, there's a case, I think I call it the amazing case of a guy named Marshall Meadow. I don't know if anyone's heard of him. I just heard him recently in early January. This is a non-scientist. This is a guy who had no science education, no chemical background, but he was determined to extract what's called the cellulose from plant debris. And so he went to Walden Pond and meditated. Then he went home and worked on this project for 15 years, and he found a way to extract sugary cellulose from plant debris, corn cobs, hay, to actually get this cellulose out of it. And scientists at Stanford and MIT had been working on this for years, and they couldn't get it done. But this guy with no chemical background, no chemical training, no formal education in science, was able to do this. He found a way to get this sugary-rich material out. And what it does is just amazing. It's a program on 60 Minutes. You could actually just type in MEDOFF, Meadows talk on in 60 Minutes. It was a segment on 60 Minutes about not even a month ago, about 3 weeks ago. Anyway, he found this abundant biological biomass. It's the most abundant biomass on Earth by just extracting this cellulose. And what does it do? Well, it makes sugar that you can put in your car. It's much cheaper than gas. You can put in your truck. You can drink it, but it doesn't rot your teeth. It's sugar, but it tastes like sugar, but it's healthy sugar. It doesn't destroy your teeth, and it's healthy. And it turns out that it makes plastic. This stuff makes plastics. Plastic that biodegrades itself in about 3 or 4 months, as opposed to the plastic we have now that takes 500 years. But when we dump plastic in the ocean or wherever we put it, it takes up to 500 years for that plastic to degrade. The plastic he produced from plant biomass biodegrades in about 3 months. It looks just like it, but it only takes 3 months to biodegrade and return. It all comes from plant debris and this sort of sugar compound. And as I said, the scientists from MIT and Stanford couldn't figure this out. He now has 50 scientists working for him from these famous schools. And the only issue now is how long will it take for the oil industry and the people that do plastics to give a little opening to allow this new product to come forward, because there's competition. Whenever there's something new, the old guard just says, wait a minute, we can't let this new guy come in because it's going to cause us to lose money. But it's an interesting kind of whole new thing, and they're calling it the holy grail of sugar. Because that's all it is, it's sugar in plant debris. It's amazing that this much is in it. Now with that, I'm going to bring my presentation to a close. Now that I've given you the 5 facts of what the universe, how it does what it does. And invite you to go within for a moment. So if you would put your attention on that quiet place and simply know with me that right where you are is the presence of the One. Yes, is the presence of the One. This One manifests itself in and through all creation. Through you, through me, through every thought, through everything, through this holy ground upon which we are standing and sitting. But it is not absorbed by its creation. It just creates and creates and creates. And we can participate in this creation because we are one with it, which means it is part of us and we are part of it. And whatever it is that we want, whatever it is that we have our attention on, as long as it's consistent with the law, it's going to come into being. So I accept that each of us here is receiving what we need to receive in our special place in life. That those who are not here are also receiving what they need to receive. That whatever truth is being taught, wherever it is being taught, whatever philosophy is being taught in, that those people too are receiving the truth, and we give blessings to them, knowing that they are children, one of the billions and billions of children of the one life that is just on this planet, let alone all the whole cosmos. But we give thanks for truth wherever it is taught, whatever language, whatever planet, wherever it exists, for it is what advances the one life that we call by many, many names. And so as we move into the rest of the day, move into the rest of this service, I simply say thank you, Father, Mother, Spirit, Father, Mother, God, for all that is and for all that is to come. And with that, you can join me by saying, and so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Would you expand that to include Reverend G? You, the prayer, expand it to include Reverend G. She has liver disease and she needs...
You can listen to my words or close your eyes if you want. Our beloved Reverend G, who was with us for a while, has an issue with her liver cancer. We simply accept and know that she is in her right place and she is healing according to the law, of which we don't know where the law is going to take her or what's going to be happening. But what we want to do is hold the ladder for the best outcome. Hold the ladder for divine right action, whatever form that action might be. We won't deny the condition, but we accept that God is on the job, that God knows what to do better than we do and is doing the best that can be done. And that we are here to affirm that best, to affirm her comfort in whatever form that needs to be. For if she is comfortable, if she is happy, if she's in a peaceful place, the best healing will take place, however that's going to look. And included in this prayer would be all other individuals who have any need for healing. And I put my friend Nathan, who made his transition about 3 weeks ago, into the mix here. And all individuals who have a need for healing, we put them into the mix, knowing that they are in their right place. That they are doing what they need to do and being listened to by the One. And that we're simply here to hold the space of peace, hold the space of comfort, to know that they are in their journey and that all is well beyond appearances. And that's the way it is. And so it is.
And so it is. Amen. All right, thank you.
Morning has broken like the first